One thing the just concluded Anambra State election has once again proven is that the Obidient vote, the Peter Obi vote, is not transferable. It cannot be handed over or transferred to anyone else, no matter how close that person may be to Peter Obi, or even if Peter Obi himself stands on the campaign stage and tells his supporters to vote for them. This is not just a random observation. It's something we've seen repeatedly, both in the past and now again in 2025. It's a pattern that has become very clear, and it carries a serious political message for those who are paying attention. Let's go back in time a bit. In 2021, during the Anambra State governorship election, Peter Obi campaigned vigorously for Valentine Ozigbo, the candidate of the PDP at the time. Ozigbo's campaign used Obi's image, Obi's words, and Obi's legacy to appeal to voters. In fact, many thought Obi's influence alone would be enough to swing the election in Ozigbo's favor. But what happened? Ozigbo lost. The people loved Obi, yes, but that love did not automatically extend to his preferred candidate. That was the first big sign that Peter Obi's support base was personal, not transferable. Fast forward to 2023, the presidential election. Peter Obi was on the ballot himself, running under the Labour Party, and this time the results in Anambra and across the southeast were astonishing. Obi won almost 100% of the entire votes in Anambra. In many polling units, it wasn't even close. The other parties were practically invisible. That election proved that when Peter Obi himself is the candidate, the passion and commitment of the Obedience rise to an entirely different level. Now let's come to this recent 2025 Anambra State governorship election. Once again, Obi was not on the ballot, and this time, Labour Party didn't perform well at all, even in Peter Obi's own polling unit. That's a big statement, because it tells you that the Obidient movement isn't a typical political base that can be moved around like chess pieces. No, it's a movement built around trust, integrity, and belief in one man, Peter Obi. And that's the major point. The Obidient vote belongs to Peter Obi and Peter Obi alone. Even if Peter Obi were to personally campaign for another person, even if he stood on the stage and said, "This is my anointed candidate," it's still not guaranteed that the Obedience would automatically follow that person. Why? Because the Obedience don't just vote based on endorsement, they vote based on trust and conviction. And that trust, at least for now, is only in Peter Obi himself. Let's think about what has happened since 2023. Many so-called politicians and opportunists have climbed on the Obidient wave. They wore the badge, they used the name, and they rode on Obi's popularity to win elections. But what did many of them do immediately after? They defected to other parties, the same parties that Obi supporters were trying to change. These defections didn't just betray the Labour Party, they betrayed the trust of the people. So naturally, Obedience have become more careful, more skeptical, and less willing to trust anyone just because they claim to be obedient. And so, going forward, what we are seeing now is that the Obidient movement is no longer just a political slogan. It's a litmus test for authenticity. It's saying, don't just claim to be one of us. Prove that you share the values that Peter Obi represents: integrity, accountability, prudence, and service. This is why anyone thinking that Peter Obi can just endorse someone and automatically carry millions of votes along is making a huge mistake. We've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. If by 2027, Peter Obi decides not to run for president and instead endorses someone else or accepts to be a vice presidential candidate, that does not mean the Obidient votes will automatically go to that ticket. It's simply not how this movement works. In fact, the reverse might even happen. Many supporters could become disillusioned or quietly withdraw their participation. Some might not even come out to vote at all, because for the majority, it's Obi or nothing. And honestly, this isn't hard to understand. The Obidient movement didn't begin as a traditional political movement. It started as a moral and generational awakening. People didn't just see Obi as another politician. They saw him as a symbol of hope in a broken political system. They saw in him something they hadn't seen in decades, a leader who talked about competence, character, and capacity. A man who spoke to them, not at them. So when you see politicians today trying to borrow Obi's credibility to win elections, you can already predict the outcome. It won't work because this is not a transaction-based support system. It's a values-based movement. Even outside Anambra, this has played out in other states. During the 2023 general elections, we saw that in places where Obi's face and message were front and center, Labour Party recorded huge turnouts. But in states where local Labour Party candidates ran without any direct association or credibility linked to Obi, the turnout was far lower. Again, proving that the Obidient energy isn't transferable through party labels. It's driven by Peter Obi himself. Now, let's talk about the implications. First, for political strategists and parties like ADC, PDP, or any coalition planning for 2027, they need to understand that simply attaching Peter Obi's name to a ticket as vice president will not guarantee the support of the Obedients. It's not that simple. The Obedients don't move by political calculations, they move by conviction. If they don't see Peter Obi leading the ticket, or if they sense that he's being used as a pawn, they will simply disengage. And no matter how much you campaign, you won't replicate the 2023 energy without Obi himself on the ballot. Second, for Peter Obi himself, this is both a blessing and a challenge. A blessing because it shows how deeply trusted and respected he is across Nigeria, especially among young people who have lost faith in traditional politicians. But it's also a challenge because it means the entire movement's strength and credibility rest heavily on his shoulders. The day Obi steps back, the energy might dissipate unless he successfully builds a structure or grooms successors that the people can also trust. And finally, what the 2025 Anambra election has taught us is that Peter Obi remains the beating heart of the Obidient movement. The politicians can mock, the critics can laugh, and the opponents can twist the narrative, but the facts remain. You can win with Obi. You can't win without him. For now, and possibly for the foreseeable future, the Obidient vote belongs to one man, Peter Obi. And that's a political reality everyone will have to come to terms with before 2027. Because if there's one truth that keeps resurfacing, it's this. For the majority of the Obidient movement, it's Obi or nothing. And the next election, the 2027 presidential race, will make that clearer than ever. The stage is being set, and one thing is already obvious. It's going to be spicy.